Hello, my name is Kane Peterson from NewTek. I want to spend the next few moments to go through the Rev7 software and premium access release that is going to be coming out soon for TriCaster TC1 and VMC1 systems. This software will be available kind of in two different aspects. So there'll be the free Rev7 software, which you'll be able to download, put on your system, and we'll start by showing you what features you'll gain by just going with that level of upgrade. But then for those people who want even more features, they can add to their system the premium access support, and this will add some additional larger features to the system, and I'll go through those in some detail as well. So let's start off by looking at the free new features coming in Rev 7.0. So the first thing you probably notice is that the interface looks a little different than you might be used to. It's a much larger multi-view at the top of the screen, with the bottom of the screen having very little information on it. So this is what we call our Express Mode interface, and this is designed to make the TriCaster more approachable for new users, students or maybe volunteers at a church who just are not used to running a switcher. They're maybe going to be put off a little bit by looking at all of this stuff thrown out in front of them. We've tried to kind of reduce that and make it a little more approachable, a little more easier for these users to come and use the system. And so the first is kind of how you see the interface here. It's much more visual with a smaller switcher bar in the bottom. Now, that switcher bar at the bottom can actually be changed in one of two modes. The default that we're looking at right now is the standard TriCaster switcher, and this would work just like you're used to in the switcher with the preview and program rows and transitions and 4 downstream keyers. But we also have a mode in here called Express. You can see that as a little tab down in the bottom here where it says Switcher or Express. If I put it in Express mode, you'll see the switcher has been even made simpler, right? There's just one bar of buttons in here that you can choose from. There's just a couple of transitions, and there's 2 downstream keyers to choose from. And in this mode, to operate the switcher, it's kind of like hot punching. All you need to do is pick the source you want to go to. Let's say I want to go to camera 2. I would click camera 2, and you'll see it automatically does the transition to take you to that camera. That transition can be any transition you want. It could be cuts, it could be crossfades. Again, all of that is selectable down in here. It could also be custom transitions just by loading up other ones in here. So you do have a few choices as to what you can pick in there. It doesn't have to just be cuts and fades as the only thing. And then you have your 2 downstream keyers that operate just like the 2 downstream keyers or the downstream keyers in TriCaster. There's just half as many of them. Do realize in this mode that if you happen to have stuff on downstream keyers 3 and 4, they will still be active and work. You're just not going to have control over them. So that could be good in a way that if you wanted to have, for example, a bug that is always going to be on the screen and you do not want this less experienced user to accidentally turn it off, just make sure you put that bug in downstream keyer 3 or 4, and then they, through this interface, actually will not have the ability to turn it off even if they were trying to. They'd have to go back to the traditional switcher mode to get that. So that's one of the changes, Express mode, switcher mode for this bottom part of the interface. Now, you might be asking, well, that upper part, how do I get back all the tools I used to have at the bottom, like the audio mixer and the DDR, so that I can have it operate more like TriCaster I'm used to? And that can be done by clicking this bottom bar on the screen, just click in an empty area, so not on one of the buttons, although actually I think that works when it's collapsed. And when you do that, you'll see that the bottom part springs up. Now it looks like a TriCaster that you've used for the last few years. So, and if you want to go back, just click an empty area again and it will drop that back down. So you can easily go back and forth between these 2 modes. Now, another aspect that comes in with this is we've also made it possible to switch the interface by clicking on the monitors in here. So instead of having to switch by using the switcher panel at the bottom, you could actually just click on the monitor you want and switch to that monitor. And that option can be done by through the menus. So up in the drop-down menus under Options, there's an option called Click on Monitors to Switch. And so if you turn that on, and so you'll see there's now a check mark next to it, the system will now switch cameras just by clicking on them. So if I want to go to camera 4, I click on camera 4 and you can see it just transition to camera 4. If I want to go back to myself here, I'll click on it and you'll see it goes to myself there. So This makes it very easy, and this leads into another feature that we've added, which is the ability to use touch screens. So on a TC1 or VMC1 system, if you put a touch screen, on the system, this will make it very easy to operate the system through touch. Now, mouse will work as well, so either one can be used, but you just put that on there, and you can touch it touch the monitor you want to bring that source up. A few other things that go into that, you'll notice that because of this touchscreen support, there's been a few extra tools that have been slightly modified or added in certain areas. So for example, in these source monitors, you'll notice that if you put your pointer over where the audio meters would normally be or do show up, depending on if the source has audio or not, you'll see a little audio adjustment in here, just like you'd find in the audio tool, and I can drag that up and down to adjust the volume of that source. So that makes it easy that from this interface you can still adjust those audio levels. You'll also notice that in the audio mixer itself, if I go in here, that the handles on these have also been made larger. So you can see it there. So again, just making it easier for touchscreen. And there are a few other aspects. You notice some of the buttons on these rows have been a little larger, making it a little easier for touchscreen operations. So if you're wondering why a few of the things have been resized, it's been put in so that touchscreen can be made a little more useful for those kind of users on the system. Now, another aspect of the system that has changed is the panels that you open up. Let me just open up one here. Let me turn off the monitor switch so I don't accidentally do that. And if I click on a gear, you'll notice that the panels that allow you to configure the different inputs or really anything that opens up in the system have changed slightly. Now, they still look for the most part similar, but you'll notice again that instead of it displaying everything at you in kind of like one window, it's got a little bit more, I would say, an Adobe-like look to it, where there's an arrow, and if you click on a source, it opens up that part of the panel and collapses the other one. So this makes it so, again, there's less information being shot at the user simultaneously, makes it a little bit easier for touchscreen operation. There's less things that you're trying to pick between. But just realize that all you need to do is click on either the arrow or just click on even just in the entire bar that the arrow is contained inside, and it will open up that section of the panel. These panels have also been made a little more intelligent. When you go to use them, they're going to show you things that are relevant based upon what you pick. And let me, just to explain that a little bit here, I just picked, let me go to input 1, for example. I'll go to input 1, and you'll see in here that I can choose my source just like I normally could. I can name it, but you'll see that because it sees that this is a PTZ camera, this is a NewTek PTZ1 camera that I'm using, it shows me all the PTZ presets for it because that is relevant for this source. If I go down, for example, and pick a DDR instead, you'll see that I get some of the same things, all right, but I also get a playlist tab, and it shows me all the playlists. So I can actually interact and load and rearrange clips in here just like I could in the main DDR. So when you open up certain things, you might see some tools appear because they're things that apply into that input, and that's just going to happen automatically based upon whatever it is that you select through the interface. Now, PTZ has also been a few other changes to it. You'll notice there is not a PTZ tab down at the bottom of the interface. PTZ is now contained in every single input. This does increase the PTZ capacity now so that you can control as many PTZ cameras as are available that you can connect on the system, where before we only allowed you to control up to 8. So if you have 16 PTZs on a TC1, you will be able to control all 16 PTZs just by going into the appropriate input. Under the source area, you'll see an area that says PTZ control. Let you see it a little better here. It's automatically set to NDI, so any NDI PTZ camera will automatically be configured without doing anything extra. But if you need to choose anything else, here's all your other PTZ camera types. You could select the appropriate one. That will also then pop up the additional controls for configuring it. And then once you've set that up, the PTZ presets will appear below it, and in here you can select your the presets, set those. There's all the virtual controls in there. Another minor, but I know asked for feature from some people is there's now the options to invert the joystick controls. So if some people didn't like that up and down work the way they did, they wanted up and down to be inverted, you now have the ability to choose both pan, tilt, and zoom to invert the direction in which they work. So that could be a very useful enhancement for some people out there. Another feature that is in the system is also LiveMat Pro. Now, LiveMat Pro is a enhanced version of our keying algorithm. When you go in and select anything, it looks like the same controls that you're used to, but you should find that you get slightly better results than you did before, just because this algorithm is being used behind the scenes that has been more optimized and tweaked to give you better keys with, the kind of results that we're always used to, but now even better in this version of TriCaster. So while it doesn't say LiveMat Pro, and it doesn't actually look like there's any change through the UI, just realize that behind the scenes, LiveMat Pro is automatically being taken advantage of inside the system. One of the last new features that you're going to find with Rev7 is the Notification Center. The Notification Center can be found in the upper right corner. There's now, it looks kind of like a little chat box, and this will change colors based upon what kind of notifications are waiting for you. So if it's gray, it means there's no new notifications. Green just means they're informational, or you could see like yellow or red based upon if they're a warning or an error. So if you think about in previous TriCaster models, there would be sometimes a message that might pop up right in the middle of the screen. It'd be there for a few seconds and disappear. Maybe you didn't catch it. Maybe you wanted to be able to look at that later, right? You're going to call support. You're going to call your reseller. You're going to call the person over who really knows this thing inside and out. And, you want to tell them, hey, this is what it said, but of course it's gone and you don't know what it said anymore. Well, now if you click on this little button in here, it will open up the information. And just to show you like an idea here, I'm just going to pull up the about information. So I'll hit the key that displays the version number. You'll see it just turned green in the corner. It gives me a little number to tell you, hey, there's one notification waiting for me. If I click on it, you can now see it just told me the version number and the session information. So I'm in a 1080p 60 session that I'm working in. You can also clear out notifications you don't want in here anymore. And then one other thing that's also in here now is it does also display the IP address of your TriCaster. So if you're trying to find that out for live panel access, or if you need to open a web browser, there's a button in here to do that as well. And this will just open up the default web browser on the system, and then you can use that. By the way, if you're not aware, something else that has been supported now is the ability to install third-party web browsers. The supported web browser is Firefox. When you install it, just tell Firefox not to install its update service. It's good to go to custom and uncheck that, and then it will install cleanly with no warning messages when the system starts up. And now you can have a much more modern web browser that you can use inside the TriCaster should you need to access something through Live Panel or go to some web page to configure a streaming setting or something like that. All right, so that takes us through kind of free 7.0 features that you're going to get automatically on here. So there's some really nice ones in there. The new keying notification center, more PTZ support. You can see some major changes to how the UI operates. You can make it operate as it traditionally does. So those kind of users who just want it to run the way they want can have that. But we've also made it where you can really kind of pick and choose how simplified you want the interface to be, along with things being able to click on the video monitor to switch, which again really appeal to new users.